Looks like we're live.
We're live. Good morning, everybody. We're welcome to the jungle with Liger Partners. I'm here. I'm your host, Craig Slyke, for the Friday morning time slot, and I'm here with the legendary Ed Bolian of VINwiki. Welcome, Ed. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Cool, thank you. For my longtime viewers, they might remember Ed as being the first guest I ever had on any podcast. So thank you for returning.
My absolute pleasure. How's the podcast been doing?
Hit and miss. To be honest, I think last week we had something set up with a West Coaster who we didn't clearly define the time differences. And so 5 a.m. for him, 8 a.m. for us just didn't happen. So we're rescheduling.
There you go. Hey, bump in the road.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't let that keep us down.
Never.
Never. And this is going to be the last one that I do from home because Liger's moving into our new offices. And I got to look at the new podcast studio yesterday, and it looks amazing. Isaac and Ingrid have set that thing up, and we have this awesome view from the 12th floor of the Crown Point building in Sandy Springs, and it's got this awesome view from the podcast studio with like 3 panels of windows, and we have the screens to put the cool stuff behind you and all the different 6 different cameras. Like we're gonna be balling next week. Yeah. Well, a little background. Let's remind everybody who you are.
Okay. Sure.
All right. So Ed, who are you?
I'm Ed Bolian, born and raised around Atlanta, Georgia. Went to Georgia Tech, started an exotic car rental company out of my dorm room there. Went on to be the director of sales at Lamborghini Atlanta for about 6 years, and left there about 6 years ago and started a company called VINwiki that's kind of like a crowdsourced version of Carfax, a social vehicle history reporting platform. So we've got an app that has about 370,000 users where people post information about their cars or cars they know about or cars they've interacted with in some way. And it builds more of like a living and breathing modern social timeline of a car's history to inform used car buyers and things of that nature. And about a year after we launched the app in 2016 and 2017, we launched a YouTube channel to promote it, also called VINwiki, where me and my friends just sit around and tell our best car stories. And that's really blown up. So we got about 1.3 million subscribers there. Last year, we got over 130 million views, and it's been a very, very interesting and entirely unexpected and unintentional experience into becoming a YouTuber of sorts, or at least some kind of a social media user person, whatever it is. So that's me.
Well, you kind of glossed over what you got initially became famous for, which you did last time too, if memory serves.
Oh, did I? Well, yeah. So in 2013, while I was working at Lamborghini Atlanta, I became the fastest person ever to drive across the country. So I drove from New York to LA, the Cannonball Run, in 28 hours and 50 minutes.
Yes. That's amazing. And that's, original route pre-COVID time still stands.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Now that everybody's not commuting to work and there's a lot fewer police out there on the roads, it's become a lot easier. So now after, a year or so of COVID shutdowns, I am the 13th fastest person to drive across the country. Yes.
What?
Yeah. A lot of people have used the opportunity to drive very fast. It seems like it's quite an advantage.
Well, I was aware of a handful, but I didn't realize that there was a dozen people who have are they some of the people doing it over again, or is it?
Yep. Some of them have multiple attempts for sure. So yeah, it's just, it seems like it's a 3 to 4 hour advantage to do it right now. And you can do it during the week rather than on a weekend, which is kind of a unique thing. That was certainly never an option when I was contemplating it. But yeah, it's become quite the thing. You can just kind of go out there and drive a lot faster than we're accustomed to, perhaps.
That's amazing. So the reason why I've asked you on today is because Eric, the majority owner at Liger Partners, asked me about, well, we started talking about YouTube and possibly using our podcasting area for YouTube shows, that sort of thing, since we have everything.
Right.
And he's like, and he said, well, I don't really understand how to monetize it. And I said, I know someone who does. That would make a great podcast. So I'm hoping that you can share it with us, some tips and tricks on how you accidentally became a YouTube star.
Yeah, happy to. It's something I was certainly never seeking. And when you look at the people who exist as influencers for money in whatever the way that becomes, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or TikTok or any of the other social platforms that are constantly popping up, it's it's something where you kind of have to take something that's a genuine expression of who you are and the brand that you want to convey to the world. That usually has to be curated and manicured a little bit in order to be something that an audience can understand and become attached to, develop a relationship to. But then you have to look at what platform you're planning to release content on and figure out exactly how you're going to tailor you to that. And generally it only works well if there's an initial ulterior motive. And so, like for us, I realized that in order to get people to download my VINwiki app, it was going to cost me, $3 to $5 per user acquisition. And for my burgeoning tech startup, that was money I simply didn't have. I couldn't go out and spend $250,000 to acquire our first 100,000 users. And so we had to kind of get scrappy, as most small businesses have to, and taking to social media was certainly the answer. And so we had tried targeted Facebook ads. We had tried Instagram posts with me and my car-loving friends sharing things, and nothing really translated, mostly because nothing scaled. And so we hadn't found the way that we could sort of capture a social media audience to the extent that they would become brand ambassadors for us, or at least enjoy our content enough to explore deep enough into who the brand is to download the app and try to use it. And so after about a year of trying everything else and gaining about 5,000 app users, we started the YouTube channel, and that's where the other 365,000 have come from. And so obviously that is what works. And fortunately, after a few months of producing content, we achieved something that a tech startup, never dreams about, is a negative cost of user acquisition. Our marketing is what makes money. So when we market, when we make YouTube videos, we make some money and we get new users to an app that is still not monetized. But it gave me so much more runway to let the app grow, to let the app live, and to let people understand what it is, and to help me understand how they want to use it. And in doing so, it saved the company, no question. I mean, it would have been one of these apps that kind of sits in the background and a few people like, a few people use, but it never could have gained the legs that it did with me funding it by any stretch without the YouTube experience. And so, yeah, we release daily YouTube videos. They're usually between 8 and 13 minutes long, and it's filmed in a studio, not unlike what you're setting up there. We don't have a million cameras the way that you guys do, which would be quite useful at times, but we just sit interview style. And again, me or one of my friends tells a car story that we support with B-roll and images and things like that. But it's one of these things that it's not the highest production quality in the world. It's not something that you're going to submit to a film festival, but at the same time, there is enough quality there. It is repeatable, and it's an accurate representation of the type of content that would belong in our app. And so again, there's an authenticity that's required in what you're doing in order for people to buy into it and enjoy it. But at the same time, again, we have 1.3 million YouTube subscribers and 365,000 acquired app users in there. So a lot of people, most of them in fact, are just watching it for entertainment. but at the same time, they're, hopefully eventually converted into people who at least understand and use and potentially can evangelize our app.
That's amazing. So YouTube, you've told me, keeps changing their algorithm.
Mhm.
They keep mixing it up every 6 months or so? Every what?
Every 6 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, 6 weeks.
Yeah, otherwise we'd figure out what the triggers are to make a video more successful and hack our way through it pretty easily. Yeah, so YouTube works in an interesting way. All of these algorithm-fed social feeds work in their own ways in terms of what motivates a video or a piece of content to be successful, to be out there, and it's one of those things that you can't always predict it. So it could be like ratios, it could be comment engagement, it could be watch duration, it could be that it's tied to other successful pieces of content from larger content creators than you are. And again, it changes. So what I can see when the algorithm changes, because the curves of my view counts in videos will change. And so that works well for us because our content is consistent enough that I know how it should behave. If it behaves differently, I know something else is happening. And so, sometimes we'll see that on YouTube at minute 15 after a video has been released, if the viewership is doing something, it will trigger a spike or a drastic drop in the way that video is propagated throughout YouTube's ecosystem. Because when you look at our viewership, only about 2 to 3% of our views are from subscriber notifications. And that's actually very good. Most of your views come from subscribers eventually. That's a number that increases over time, independent of viewership. But that only happens because of their viewership trends within YouTube. They're not generally responding to a push notification saying that VINwiki just released a new video at 10 a.m. Eastern every weekday. In fact, they're just seeing it because of their historic view patterns and YouTube recognizing that this is a video they're likely to click, they're likely to watch, and it's going to keep them on YouTube. The same thing is true for Facebook or for Instagram. Again, once we went into these social feeds, rather than just a browsing model like Facebook began with, like MySpace had, where you literally, if you want to know what Craig did this morning, you've got to search Craig, click on his profile, and then see what's going on. Now the apps serve up what they think we're interested in learning about, and that's what shows up in our feeds. And that's why we see, at times extremely polarizing and divisive content where an algorithm is learning this is what makes you interact with our platform. And so we're going to serve you more stuff like that. And so, on one hand, it's what works. These are, ad platforms. They are designed to serve us ads and to keep us engaged in their ecosystem and not bounce to Twitter or anything else, or even turn our phones off. So the idea is very much to maximize view time. And so last year, our videos got 2,200 years of watch time on YouTube. So you look at that as
in 1 year.
Yeah, in 1 year. So it's like a time machine. Yeah. And so it's one of those things that, as again, I didn't set out to be a YouTuber. And in fact, even if I had, I can't imagine myself having the time, the personal runway to not make money before it began to be something like a salary replacement to make it all worthwhile. And the conversation that I had with my founding team at VINwiki was early on when we started to see, all right, well, we are seeing engagement, we are seeing usability, and this is working as a marketing exercise. However, this is going to become someone's full-time job to create the YouTube content that we need to sustain the growth that we want. And I said, I am open to becoming the person that does this, but I was in no way qualified or seeking out, internet fame or stardom. I just said, look, this is the only thing we found that works from a marketing perspective. So why don't we try it harder? However, this needs to be a eat what you kill kind of scenario. And if I'm going to make this my full-time job before it pays me to do so, like let's make it my job in perpetuity. if it's successful. And they were all very excited about that because it meant that their app was going to grow without them having to do any additional work. And so it's kind of become my pet project inside of what VINwiki is as a company. And fortunately now it's great. I mean, I remember the growth, and like the first day, months into it, that I was like, we made $100 today on the internet, like from people watching videos. This is crazy. Like that's almost replacing my wife's teacher salary here. This is wild. And, you know, it's just that then you see a video take off and things do better and things, whatever. And then you try to figure out, is this anything I could ever count on or predict or see trends in? And so, you know, I like the business aspect of content creation and everything that means. But at the same time, it's one of these things that it's such a peculiar way to earn a living that it always sort of feels like the rug could get pulled out from under you. It's like, you know, you can't really back into how much money any of these social platforms owes you on a monthly basis. You know that it trends based on views and view time and ad rates and things like that, some of which are available in your analytics. But at the end of the day, there's always the effectively the ad rate, which is a fudge factor that could easily be manipulated, and you can't know if it's accurate. You can know how it trends, and you can know that in certain genres, ad rates are much higher. So for instance, in, you know, high-end travel, business advice, investment advice, things like that, those are going to be really, really big ad rates. And some things like these lifestyle vloggers that get millions and millions of views every video, they have abysmal ad rates because their fundamental audience has less spending power. And so when you start trying to think about content creation as a career, then you've really got to consider, right, who am I actually talking to through this medium, and what spending power do they have? What does that mean in terms of the brand deals that I can get, in terms of the merchandise or whatever product that I might be able to sell, and obviously in terms of the internal ad rates that'll be available to me through each of the platforms.
Cool. Now, you mentioned making $100 in a month.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
in a day. That was the novelty. $100 a month is pretty realistic. Yeah. This video might make $100 in a month.
Yeah.
There you go.
So how do you go about monetizing YouTube? So you put it up, you start up your channel, mm-hmm. and you give them your bank account and money starts just coming in, right?
Yeah, exactly like that. You can't even stop it. There's just money everywhere. Now, I don't know how it happened.
I'm like Scrooge McDuck over here.
That's it, swimming in coins. So what happens on any social platform is that you start creating content, and at some level of follower interaction, you qualify for monetization. That varies based on platform. Obviously, for video, the two major ones are YouTube and Facebook Watch, and Instagram TV becoming a thing. That's just beta testing monetization there. And so I think right now it's 4,000 watch hours and 1,000 or 4,000 subscribers is the monetization threshold for YouTube. And people get frustrated about how hard that can be to reach. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because even at 3, 4, 5 times that level of engagement, you're still not making a meaningful amount of money. And so you've got to build a content model that trends yourself towards much, much higher engagement that for it to be of any consequence. And so the answer is you start producing content, and it's a good idea if you go ahead and set up an AdSense account through other Google platforms, so that once you do get monetized, you can more quickly add your AdSense account rather than at that moment having to do something that requires multi-step verification and things of that nature. And so, yeah, so you start making content, you get people to watch it, and then you get monetized. But again, just being monetized doesn't mean a thing, because you're talking about potentially making dollars per day. And so what you want to be able to do then is sort out exactly, how are you going to get this to grow? How are you going to tailor your content to fit the platform so that it works the way that it does? For instance, like what we're doing right now, it works great as a podcast. That's what it's designed to be. It will not work well on Facebook as in terms of viewership, because it's difficult to share by the people who are doing it. And it's difficult to gain a lot of traction because most people are watching in mobile. We're in a landscape style setup that's harder to crop, and it doesn't allow live content on Facebook can be high engagement, but it doesn't involve high viewership numbers. Also, a view on Facebook is 3 seconds. A view on YouTube is 30 seconds. A monetized view on YouTube, also 30 seconds. However, because Facebook doesn't stitch in ads, they just essentially pay content creators for keeping people in Facebook. You're dealing with an entirely different concept. So all you need people to do is watch for a minute for a view to be monetized. Again, 3 seconds counts, 1 minute makes you money on Facebook. YouTube's different because they are serving ads before it. So you can make money just because somebody clicked it, but for a video view to be that meaningful, it needs to be several minutes long. And now, you can't add mid-roll ads, meaning the ads that you have to click through in the middle of someone's content if content is below 8 minutes long. And so generally, if you want to really make money, you want to allow YouTube to serve more ads. Now, your viewers may not like that, but unfortunately, it's just kind of part of the ecosystem. Again, you're not paying to produce the content. They're not paying to watch it. The advertisers are. And so when you look at the number of ads per minute of view time, it's still lower than what we would have seen on cable television historically. And similarly, the ad rates that advertisers have to pay is a whole lot less than what they would have with traditional advertising. And so you obviously come from a marketing background and you have familiarity with what fair CPM rates are for an advertising campaign. And when you look at the CPM rates that can be achieved on YouTube, both natively through Google's AdSense platform and through brand deals that you can get with content creators, honestly, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've done deals where, the ad rates, the CPM would be $1 or $2 per 1,000 impressions. And these are higher impact impressions than most of these advertisers are accustomed to in traditional media. I mean, that's half or less of what a billboard is worth. And I mean, obviously the impact of either an ad that you actually have to click through or watch versus a billboard is a considerably better value. But again, because of targeting and everything else, some of the ad rates get really, really high. And so it's interesting to see kind of how that develops.
So then it would make sense to, if you have your video be at least 8 minutes long to post to YouTube, 8 to 10 minutes, then you're basically doubling your potential for making money on that because you got an ad in the beginning and an ad in the middle.
Correct. And actually at 8 minutes, you also are allowed to have ads at the end that auto play before the next video begins that are attributed to yours. So inevitably, most viewers are going to see the first ad for the next video, but if that happens to not be yours, they'll have had to encounter one on your channel as well.
So triple then.
Exactly. Yeah. But again, the ad rates for different placements are very different. And so the ads that you'll see that are non-skippable at the beginning of a video, those are going to be your highest ad rate. That means that the advertiser is paying a lot more for that placement than they will for, say, a skippable ad 2/3 of the way through a video. Obviously, the likelihood that a viewer encounters that is considerably lower.
And the reason why that we were talking about this, because you've got kids, you've got Graham and Gracie, and I've got Isla, and they'll just, if I give them YouTube on my phone, she'll watch it all day long if I don't take it away from her. And just from video to video to video to video. And most of the content is terrible. It's
Correct.
really poor quality. So it's kind of seems like a big opportunity.
Yeah, so I thought that as well. So I started making videos for my targeted genre and eventually making, something of a living through doing it. And I'm like, all right, well, if you like cars, at this point, it's become pretty likely that you'll have heard of VINwiki and maybe watched 1 or 2 of the 1,000 videos that we produced. However, it's almost inconceivable that you would have watched it 5 or 6 times. However, if my kid watches a YouTube video, there's a reasonable chance that he's going to want to watch that video every single morning. And, we have to limit our kids' access to social media because we have a lot less control over what they're seeing than if we know that it was produced by Disney or something else that like when we grew up that we saw. And so there is the risk of unsafe content. There are a lot of risks. However, I saw that and I was like, look, these guys are getting 30, 50 million views a video. Like that's more than I was getting a year for a very long time and producing my own content. Like, how do I do that?
Yeah.
And so I started to experiment because my son and I, now 6 years old, our favorite thing to do together is build Hot Wheels tracks. And so we'll build these elaborate tracks that run around the house. And, when he wants to watch something on a computer screen, he really wants to watch Hot Wheels videos. And the YouTube Hot Wheels videos are terrible. I mean, they're not interesting. They're not compelling. They're not impressive. There's nothing that you want to see about it. However, there's not better options. And so I was like, well, I could make better Hot Wheels videos for YouTube. Now, as weird as it is to have people show up and ask to take a picture with me at a car show, the last thing I want is to be walking through a grocery store and have some 8-year-old come up screaming, Mr. Ed, whatever that is. So it wasn't the most attractive way to make money, but I certainly saw it as a huge opportunity. So we did some experimentation with some kids-oriented videos, really just making Hot Wheels tracks or like ABC stuff with cars or anything like that. And nothing really took off, and I'm quite pleased with that because not long after that, we saw the Copa Regulations crack down, mostly based out of California, but affecting generally everybody. And that meant that the ad platforms can't know what ads they are serving to children. So technically, you're not allowed to have an account for any social media platform if you're under the age of 12. However, obviously they know based on the kind of content that you're watching if you're under 12 years old. And if that's the case, they have to just blindly serve you ads, meaning it just randomly serve to, whatever normal daytime television advertisers they have on the platform, which means fundamentally the ad rates are as low as they could possibly be because they are untargeted. Prior to that, kids' ad rates were incredible because kids really want to buy whatever you put in front of them. And it doesn't matter if they don't need some nonstick pan. If they get told on their favorite show that it's the greatest thing that's ever happened, they're going to tell mommy or daddy, you got to buy this crazy pan. How are we cooking my eggs without that? And so it's one of those things that now they just get served whatever shows up. So most of those content creators now rely much more heavily on brand deals. And so when you look at the ways that influencers or content creators make money, most of the time it comes from 3 different things. It's going to come from ads served inside the platform, Facebook ads, Google AdSense, and YouTube, things of that nature. It's also going to come from sponsor deals, and it's going to come from merchandise. And depending on what the brand is, merchandise can be huge. I've known automotive creators that sell over $1 million a year in shirts and stickers. And that must be amazing for them, but it certainly doesn't affect my brand that way. We sell some cheap shirts because if you want to walk around a car show wearing a VINwiki shirt, I certainly want you to have no obstacles to doing so. But at the same time, it's never going to be the way that I retire. But it's a good way to increase engagement with your audience and offer incentives and stuff like that. But brand deals are huge because, again, these are the new ways of advertising. And when you look at the opportunities for you to represent sponsors in a very authentic way and to expose your viewers to an advertiser potentially at a better ad rate than they would have to pay to add ads in your content very deliberately, which they can do, but also to allow them to have a little bit more flexibility of where that happens, how that gets introduced, and what you can do. And so, we do ads a little bit differently at VINwiki. We sell them by the month because I want to be able to guarantee viewership, which I can only do kind of in the aggregate. You never really know which of your videos is going to take off. But if I'm selling a video every weekday to a sponsor, which is 21 to 24 videos, depending on how many weekdays there are in the month, then I know that I can be comfortable guaranteeing them 5 million views within the next 12 months. And so it allows me to give them a really, really compelling ad rate, ads that stay in place in perpetuity, because, even though I'm going to satisfy that obligation in the first 12 months, they're going to get another 100 to 300,000 views per month forever that they didn't have to pay for. And so as long as their messaging still works at that point, it's a good thing to have. And so the fact that I limited effectively to 12 sponsor placements a year both allows me to make it a little bit lower impact on the viewer, knowing that they're going to be hyper exposed to it in the number of videos that they're going to be shown, but also offer additional perks like stickers on cars and logos on shirts and links in all the descriptions and all the things that we want to do. And so, every brand has to figure out what their, model is in terms of monetizing their audience. For instance, I was at an event, a car event with one of the former bachelors of the television show. And essentially now he is an Instagram influencer. That's how he earns most of his money, because throughout the show, he gained over 1 million followers on Instagram, and people will pay him to make posts. And so I follow him now just to see how that's going for him. And, he'll be promoting some restaurant or some hotel or some new drink or some coffee thing. And he's charging, $20,000 to $40,000 a post for that sort of thing, which again, I can't fathom, but good for him. I've steadily grown an Instagram audience. It's very different. The subscriber growth that you see on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and everything else. Facebook, you pretty much have to buy your followers because the call to action to subscribe or follow on Facebook is not as drastic. And so unless you're doing it heavily through your own content, you really do have to pay Facebook to encourage people who were already watching your content to press the button, which again doesn't really matter because they're only going to serve the content to people they already thought were going to watch it, regardless of whether they're followers or not. YouTube's different because there is more of it's not a snowballing effect, it's a fixed growth effect. And so, for instance, we average gaining about 1,000 subscribers a day, give or take. And so we did 300,000 new subscribers to 1 million subscriber channel in 2020. And so, and that was a little bit less. I think we did 430,000 in 2019. So our subscriber growth, it's down, but it's still huge. But it's also independent of viewership, which is the strangest thing. So with more subscribers, we don't get any more views. Sometimes we get less views. We usually get a little bit more watch time, but that's more consistent with just life on the platform, that the videos that people watch, they mean to more often. They don't click something like, I hate this stuff, I'm going to tune right out. And so there's a lot of variables, again, that are involved, but you just kind of have to feel that out. So whatever your content strategy is, and again, whatever ulterior motive it serves, it could be to be famous, and there's plenty of people that want that to be the case. But if you're trying to market a product, if you're trying to grow a brand, if you're trying to do marketing that otherwise you'd have had to pay someone for, then that's going to dictate the type of content that you're going to be able to create.
Yeah. And what you said probably about towards the beginning of the conversation, that negative customer acquisition cost, that's insane.
Yeah.
That was unheard of before this.
Correct. Yeah. So the idea that, but at the same time, the only reason that works is that my commercials are someone's greatest car story, which hopefully and fortunately is usually pretty entertaining. So whether it's you jumping your Mustang off the Chips Bridge or somebody else telling their best car story, it's one of those things that both immortalizes their story, gives an audience something to watch, and you don't know who the advertiser was in the video, but you're glad that over 500,000 people have gotten the chance to see it. And so it's really, really a fun thing. And I like our content strategy a lot, not only because it is an authentic depiction of what we want people to be doing inside of the VINwiki app, but it is repeatable, it is enjoyable. There's easy ways for me to make it as high quality as anything else on the platform without necessarily having to spend, 5 hours per minute of content producing it, because you can't do that. And there's a lot of people in traditional media space that are very, very sour or critical of the successes that some content creators have on any platform because they're better at it than we are. And it's hard for them to go out and pour their talent and their soul into a video or a piece of content and then see some TikTok girl get 500 times the viewership because that's just what the platform likes. And again, if they want to produce something that could air on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu or any of the other streaming services or even cable television, that's a different product. And, you know, most of the content wouldn't bridge well. We've been able to, you can play down a lot better than you can play up. And so that's been the greatest thing for me personally to come out of whatever successes that we've had on YouTube, was that through some collaborations with some other big YouTubers, we got to play Car Trek. And so Car Trek is a series that I do with two other big automotive YouTubers, Tavarish and Hoovie's Garage. And we essentially go play Top Gear. We loved watching the show and the challenges that they would have, where they each had to go out and buy a car and then do crazy things. And because of the sponsor relationships that we've been able to build, the revenue that the videos can create on the YouTube platform, and the relationships that we have in terms of higher value production, we're able to do that. Now, it's not nearly as profitable or as expensive to produce as it would be for a traditional cable television show, especially not Top Gear, which was the most expensive car show or any show ever to produce for non-talent based expenses. And so we did 3 of those series of 7, 5, and 5 episodes each last year in 2020, and we're going to try to do 3 or 4 of them this year. And that is the most fun I've ever had in anything that could ever be construed as or called work.
I mean, they look amazing. Like you got to stay at a castle. You got to somebody crashed a Maserati.
I did do that, yeah, lightly, but yeah, we had some superficial tree contact in the last Car Trek special. But the next one is going to be cheap Ferraris. We have to buy Ferraris for the price of a Toyota Camry, and so the rest of my day is going to be spent hopefully shrewdly negotiating with some old, decrepit Ferrari sellers, trying to get them to take pennies on the dollar for what their cars might be worth.
That sounds like an amazing day.
It should be, yeah. I'll be honest, the used car market is so healthy right now, it's become quite challenging. But most of my offers have been spit in my face kind of things. But it's we're getting there. I think we'll find something soon.
Well, give me a list of all the cars you currently own right now.
Oh, goodness. Well, I still have the CL55 that we set the Cannonball record in. I have an old 2002 S55 AMG that we did this cheap car cannonball race where you had to race for $1 a mile across the country that we won back in 2015. And that still is the record ever for the fastest time from New York to LA in a competitive event. I found a really...
Right?
What's that?
That's 2904, right?
Called the 2904, exactly. And I also did, I've got a 1985 Audi 4000S that Brock Yates, who was the founder of Cannonball while working for Car and Driver magazine, had kind of done as like a special edition with Brumos Audi down in Jacksonville in 1985. So found one of those. And then I have a manual transmission Lamborghini Murcielago LP640. That's my favorite car. It's the V12 Lamborghini that they made in the 2000s. And it's just super, super cool. Through understanding its rarity, manipulating the market for them, and empirically defining that rarity through different media sources, I was able to manipulate that market enough to own my current one for free. So that's certainly my favorite car that I've got. Got a Ferrari 430 Scuderia. Got the Lamborghini Gallardo that we used for the first Car Trek series that was in a Santa Monica flood, but now is mostly functional. What else we got? Picked up another car that we can't talk about yet because the FBI might still be looking for it. But that'll become a thing soon. I think. And another 2002 S55 AMG that we're hoping, it was the cheapest car that I could buy that I thought had a prayer to make it to Glacier View, Alaska on the 4th of July. And the goal is to drive it 6,000 miles there, where on the 4th of July, they have the tradition of filling derelict cars with fireworks and shooting them off a 300-foot cliff.
That sounds amazing.
It is. There will be seats available if you'd like to come.
I'm going to have to negotiate that one. When Jen gets back from Serbia, we'll talk about it. And
if she gets to go to Serbia, certainly we get to road trip a terrible Mercedes with every possible error light on to Alaska and watch it soar off into the distance.
Yeah, I think I'm going to start planning for that for July 4th.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah.
So we were going to do it in 2020, but on July 4th, Canada was closed, and you have to go through there to get your car to Alaska.
Are they? Is it still closed, or we're hoping they open up?
Yeah, I think now you have a lot easier time selling that I'm not going to stop in Canada. Previously, that was their concern. You were allowed to go from America to America, or from U.S. to U.S., but you were not allowed to stop. Other than for gas. And so they were not believing people back then. And by the time I have to drive all the way up to Vancouver, I thought, you know what, maybe we should just wait. And so we got a pretty good group that's going to meet in Reno and then drive up before.
That does sound fantastic. It's Reno is the biggest little city in the world.
It is. And this Mercedes is actually paid for by a sponsor. There's a ceramic coating sponsor called Avalon King that does a lot of influencer advertising, and they've supported the VINwiki channel for the last few years. And so they called me and they're like, Ed, we got a little bit more sponsor money. You got any weird ideas? And I said, well, do you think that your ceramic coating would protect a Mercedes in the event of an accident? And they go, no. I said, well, if we tested that by putting it on a car and then shooting it off a cliff. And they said, yes.
Yeah.
And so we coated just the driver's side of the car in the ceramic coating to be scientific about it. The passenger side uncoated. So when it lands at the bottom of the ravine, we'll find out if it served any purpose other than keeping the car shiny.
I definitely want to be a part of that.
There you go.
All right, let's tell people where they can find you.
So obviously we're VINwiki on YouTube. I'm Ed Bolian on pretty much every other platform, and I have a small personal YouTube account that I don't put much content out on, but follow us, download the VINwiki app, and certainly stay tuned probably around May for Car Trek 4, Cheap Ferraris drive into the greatest road in America.
Which one's the greatest road in America?
You'll have to watch to find out.
I think I already know. It's
Oh,
the
yeah.
Mother Road.
It's the what?
The Mother Road.
No, that's not what. I don't even know what the Mother Road is, to be quite honest.
Route 66?
Oh yeah, no, that's an iconic road. But we mean in terms of fun to drive, based on the curves, the scenery, and the quality of the road, and perhaps the lack of enforcement.
PCH.
That would not be fast and not be, but it is very pretty. It's very pretty.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yes.
Sorry. All right. Well, thank you, Ed.
My pleasure.
As always, it's a pleasure talking to you, my friend. And we'll talk again soon. And Dobby says hi.
Hey, hello, Dobby. Good to see you.
And hi to Sunny.
Yep, Sunny's right over there. She's asleep under her the 8-foot-long albino boa constrictor.
She's 8 foot now. Wow.
She is, yeah. Gentle as ever.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it. And we'll have you on again soon.
My pleasure. Best of luck with you.
Thanks. Bye.